The town of Ashwick, Maine, was the kind of place where time moved a little slower, where the streetlights hummed softly at dusk and the fog rolled in thick from the harbor. It was 1987, and beneath the surface of its sleepy streets, something had begun to stir. Jack Harlow had lived in Ashwick his entire life. He worked at the local hardware store, a place filled with the smell of sawdust and rusting nails. At 35, he was an unremarkable man, short, stocky, with a thick mop of brown hair and a face that had seen its fair share of disappointment. But Jack had something no one else in town had, a memory that wouldn't let go.
It started with a newspaper clipping. The old Ashwick Gazette, yellowed with age, sat on his desk in the dim glow of his desk lamp. August 12th, 1965. Local boy missing in fog. Jack ran a calloused finger over the headline. The boy's name was Tommy Greaves, a 12-year-old who vanished near the harbor one foggy night. There were no witnesses, no clues, just whispers and theories. Some said he drowned. Others swore they saw something moving in the mist that night, something inhuman. Jack didn't know why it called to him now, but he couldn't ignore it. He closed his eyes and remembered his mother's voice, frail and frightened, warning him as a child. "Stay out of the fog, Jackie. The fog doesn't just roll in, it brings things with it." It was around midnight when Jack left his house, flashlight in hand. The town was quiet, the streets slick with moisture. A thick fog curled along the pavement like ghostly fingers, licking at his boots as he walked toward the harbor. He wasn't sure what he was looking for. Maybe a feeling, maybe an answer. The wooden docks creaked beneath his weight as he stepped onto them. The fog was so thick now he could barely see a few feet ahead. It was then that he heard it, soft, distant, a whisper on the wind. "Jack." The hair on the back of his neck stood up. He swung the flashlight wildly, but it only carved small tunnels through the mist. Then he saw them, wet footprints leading away from the water's edge. Bare feet, small, like a child's. A chill ran through him. He followed them, heart pounding, until he reached the edge of the docks. The footprints stopped abruptly, as if the child had simply vanished into thin air. Then the whisper came again, closer this time. "Jack, help me!" Jack staggered back, nearly dropping his flashlight. He knew that voice. It was Tommy Greaves. The next morning, Jack barely made it through his shift at the hardware store. His hands shook as he stocked the shelves, his mind replaying the whispers over and over. "Jack, you okay?" He turned to see Sheriff Dan Whitaker watching him from the counter. The sheriff was a grizzled man in his late 50s, built like an old oak tree, solid and unshakable. Jack hesitated, then leaned in. "Dan, you remember the Greaves kid?" The sheriff's expression darkened. "Of course I do. Damn tragedy. What about him?" Jack hesitated. "I think he's still out there." Dan's eyes narrowed. "Jack, it's been 20 years. Tommy's dead." Jack shook his head. "I heard him, Dan. Last night, down at the docks. He's still out there in the fog." For a long moment, Dan said nothing. Then he sighed, rubbing his temples. "You come with me after work. We'll check it out together." That night, the fog was thicker than before. It swallowed the streets whole, reducing the town to a ghostly husk. Jack and Dan walked side by side toward the harbor, their flashlights barely piercing the mist. Then a sound, a soft, wet drip, drip, drip. Dan stiffened. "That's water," he whispered. Jack followed the sound. As they neared the docks, they saw it. A shape slumped against the wooden posts, barely visible through the fog. A boy. His clothes were old-fashioned, drenched in water. His skin was pale, his face sunken, his eyes hollow. Jack felt the breath leave his lungs. "Tommy?" The boy's head lifted. His lips parted and he whispered, "Jack, help me." Then the fog around them shifted. Shapes moved within it, twisting and writhing. A guttural moan rose from the mist, something ancient and hungry. Dan grabbed Jack's arm. "We need to go, now!" Jack wanted to run, but he couldn't tear his eyes away from Tommy. "What happened to you?" he whispered. The boy trembled. "The fog took me." Then the shapes in the mist rushed forward. Jack barely had time to move as something lashed out, a shadowy tendril, slick and wet, reaching for him. He staggered back, falling hard onto the dock. Dan fired his gun into the fog, but the bullets did nothing. The fog was alive. Tommy's face twisted in pain. "It's coming!" he gasped. "It always comes!" Jack scrambled to his feet. "How do we stop it?" The boy's voice was barely a whisper. "You can't!" The mist surged forward, engulfing Tommy in an instant. His scream was swallowed by the fog, leaving only silence behind. Dan grabbed Jack's arm. "Run!" They bolted, the fog snapping at their heels like a living thing. The air grew heavy, thick, pulling at their limbs. Jack could hear whispers all around them, countless voices trapped in the mist. Then, as suddenly as it had come, the fog began to recede. Jack and Dan collapsed onto the pavement, gasping for breath. The harbor was empty once more. No Tommy, no whispers, just silence. The next morning, the town woke as if nothing had happened. The fog was gone. The sun rose over Ashwick, casting warm light on the streets. But Jack knew better. That night, something had come, and it would come again. He sat at his kitchen table, staring at the old newspaper clipping. His mother's words echoed in his head. "The fog doesn't just roll in, it brings things with it." Jack swallowed hard. Somewhere out there, in the shifting mist, they were waiting, and the fog would return. The haunted fog, a terrifying small-town mystery. What if the fog wasn't just mist, but something far more sinister? In the quiet town of Ashwick, Maine, strange whispers echo through the dense fog, leading to a terrifying discovery. Inspired by the master of horror, Stephen King, this suspense thriller will keep you on edge. Mystery, horror, suspense. Will Jack uncover the truth before it's too late? Watch now. Like and subscribe for more horror stories. Comment your thoughts. Do you believe in haunted